Like DMC's and even Keith mentioned, we're going to start and launch this new series called Not a Fan. And Keith mentioned it a little bit, but our heart for you guys and for everybody that we get to interact with on campus is that y'all will become committed followers of Christ. And when we look at the world, we look at America and our culture, we see that, man, a lot of people are fans of faith. But our heart is that you wouldn't just be a fan, but you'd be a committed follower of Christ. So we're going to talk about what the difference is in that. I like to think of it not just being our heart, but really that's God's heart for every single one of you guys. If you look at Jeremiah 29:13, it says this: "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart." So what God is saying here is that I just don't want a part of your life. I don't want you just to be a fan of me or someone that says, "Hey, oh, faith, that's a good thing." You know, I'm pro faith. But really, God's saying, "No, I want all of your heart, not just to be a fan of faith, but to really dive deep and go all in your walk with God." So I'm excited for it, excited for the series, excited for what we're going to do tonight. And what I want to even do tonight is that as you guys, here probably the next 20 minutes or so, walk out, leave tonight, I want you guys to have an answer for this question right here. What are we? What are we? Okay, so what do you mean by that? Hey, we answer this question a lot, and oftentimes it's like even with relationships, you're like, "Hey, me and you, what are we?" Me and my wife had to answer this question a couple years ago when we were dating. We just went on a couple of dates, so there wasn't much clarity on what we were, and I took her to the best, not the best city, but a great city, Wichita, Kansas. From Wichita, people out there. Yeah, we went to the Chicken and Pickle. We played pickleball. I did not let her beat me. I said, "Hey, she beats me at golf, so that's for real." So I was like, "No, pickleball's my sport." Played pickleball. We went into my truck. I had her handwritten note, and I asked her to officially be my girlfriend, to officially date. I had to define the relationship. I was like, "Hey, this is where I want to be. This is where you want to be." Luckily, she said yes, and from there, we define our relationship. Well, we do this all the time. Maybe some of you guys have it. Maybe one of you guys, fellas, walked in tonight. You saw a girl that you've seen a couple of times in Bible class or some class. You talked to her a couple of times, and maybe tonight you guys made eye contact. You're like, "Hey, what are we? Is there something here? I don't know. Is there a future here? What are we? I don't know." So it's a question we often ask, right? What are we? And I want to even set up this talk tonight by this is picture. Think about your favorite spot on campus. Maybe it's Kramer. Maybe it's the Dirt. Any Dirt fans out there? It's the library, favorite spot to chill. Maybe it's a study room in your sorority fraternity. Maybe it's a coffee shop in Manhattan. Wherever it is, I want you to think of hanging in your favorite spot. And for the sake of this, I'm going to say the library. Let's say you're hanging in the library in case that you go to bring your computer, you got some homework to work on, so you go, you sit by yourself, and you break out your laptop, and you start working on your stuff. And you're there for a couple of minutes when this person walks in the room. And this person comes in, there's a seat right across from you, and he looks at you, goes, "Hey, is the seat open?" You're like, "Yeah, go for it." And he sits down, and you guys start talking. He goes, "Hey, how's it going?" "Good." "Hey, my name is Jesus. How are you?" "Oh, wow, Jesus. Never thought that I would meet you in person. This is crazy." Obviously hypothetical here. But let's say you and Jesus are having some small talk. I'm not sure what that would look like if you and Jesus had small talk. But eventually he's just like, "Hey, let's put the small talk away. I want to ask you this question." And he asks, "What are we? What are we? Me and you, what are we?" How would you answer that question? Between you and Jesus, just there, nobody else is hearing. How would you answer that question? Tonight, my hope is that you would have an answer for that question, at least to a degree, where you know where you stand before God. And some of us in this room might be like, "Hey, me and Jesus, we're tight. We got this. Like, we've been in a relationship together. We've been growing together. It's awesome." Some of you are like, "Man, I have no idea. I don't know. If you were asking that, I wouldn't even know where to begin I'm like, man, you're sitting right here. I think we've got a friendship. I'm not sure. Maybe some of you are like, I don't like, man, we're kind of far apart. Like, I don't really know where we're at. I want you guys to be able to answer that question tonight. How we're going to do it, we're going to go back to even just the idea of our Not a Fan series. And I want to even just briefly explain. This will be kind of a flyover, just the differences between a fan of Jesus and a fan of faith versus an actual follower of Jesus and a follower of Christ. This is what this entire series is going to be about. And what's the difference? And some of you guys might find as we walk through some of these things, am I fall on more of the fan side, or do I fall on more of the follower side? As we walk through some of these, if you think, man, actually, my life, I'm probably more the fan side, our hope is that you would jump across and really look into what it's like to be a committed follower of Christ. And if you look at this, you're like, man, actually, I think I sense that I'm a follower of Christ. Our hope is that this would deepen some of your thoughts and some of your convictions about faith, and we hope that you grow. This will even challenge you as you begin to follow Christ. And so, again, just a flyover. We'll mention these three things, but I want to begin with the first one here. Does fans determine where they're at by comparison? Fans determine where they're at by comparison. What does this mean? Well, fan, if Jesus is sitting right next to him, he asks that question, hey, what are we? A fan is going to look to the left and to the right of him and say, well, how's everybody else doing? Well, and oftentimes the fan will have the thought of like, well, okay, I know this friend who's really, really religious, he's really committed, he's committed to his faith. I'm not like that person, but I'm also not like this other friend I have that like has been in jail, he's been a criminal, so I'm not like the worst of the worst. You know, I'm not the friend that I know is committed to his faith, but I'm also not like I'm not Hitler, I'm not any like massive criminal, so I'm good. I'm good enough. If Jesus were asking that, I would say, man, I'm pretty good, right? I'm pretty good. But we can see that a fan is determined by comparison, but a true follower of Christ, followers determine where they're at by the cross. Followers determine where they're at by the cross. And I'm like, well, sis, what do you mean by that? How do they determine by the cross? And it's an amazing story when we look at Scripture. One of my favorite verses in all of Scripture is Romans 5:8. And it's amazing. The first part says, but God demonstrates His own love for us in this. He's saying, this is how I demonstrate my love. Right here, two things. I demonstrate my love for you in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So one, while we're still sinners, and two, Christ died for us. And so I want to break down these two. The first one is while we were still sinners. I think you can see in this room, I don't think anybody would argue, none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. We can see that a fan says, hey, I've done good enough. You know, I'm a decent person. I'm a moral person. But a true follower of Christ says, not before God, like I'm a sinner. There's nothing good enough that I can do to earn me a relationship with God. And so on one stance, a follower of God realizes that they are a sinner. And what sin does is it actually separates us from God. And so with sin being there, we cannot have a relationship with God. That's the beautiful part about point number 2, is that Christ died for that sin. It's the most amazing miracle in the entire world, is that what separated us from God now is put away because Christ died on the cross, and I can have a relationship with God. If I choose to commit my life to God, and I choose to say that I want Jesus and God to be my King through the cross, I'm now a committed follower of Christ. And so while a fan looks around and says, hey, this is where I'm at, maybe compared to my friends, I'm not the worst of my friends, I'm also not the best of my friends, so I'm good enough. A fan might say that. A follower of Christ looks at the cross and says, hey, because of what Jesus did, I can now have a relationship with Him. And it's the most beautiful picture of what it means to have a relationship. And I'll talk about that relationship here as we go into the second one. The second one is this: fans talk the game. Fans talk the game. But when we compare it with a follower lives the game. A true follower of Christ lives the game. It's funny, I love talking college football. I can talk college football all day long. It means some of the staff guys, we love talking college football. There's a lot going on right now. We could all do it all day long. There's better things to talk talk about. And I love talking. And sometimes I'll come, to hang out with staff guys, and I've got opinions, Caleb's got opinions, Cody's got a lot of opinions, it's awesome. But the only two opinions that actually hold weight, that hold some serious weight, it's Blake and Heath. Because they have actually lived the college football life. They've been in Division I programs, very successful programs. And they've lived that life. They know how to talk college football a lot better than I do. And it's funny, it's the same thing that can be true with faith, is that some fans, hey, they can say, yeah, me and God, hey, we're good. They can talk the game, but a true follower of Christ has lived it and is living it, and their life looks different because of it. Let's look at James 1:22. This is kind of the heartbeat of what a follower does. It says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Do what it says. And so to some degree, we've got to look at our life and say, man, am I living the life that the Word, the Bible, would encourage us to live? And a fun way to think about it is even through the idea of a friendship, a relationship. And so you guys obviously, Mason was up here. Give it up for Mason real quick. He's good. He's a pretty good looking guy, right? Pretty good looking dude. I see some ladies out there ahead of Mason. I'll say that. But let's say this. Mason comes up to me and goes, "Sims, guess what?" I'm like, "What's going on?" He said, "Dude, you'll never guess." I'm like, "Okay, dude, tell me." He goes, "Bro, I'm dating Taylor Swift." I'm like, "What? That's crazy." Obviously, hypothetical here. But is that interesting? I'm like, "Mason, I wouldn't doubt it, man. You're good that good looking of a guy." I said, "Okay." I'd ask him questions, so I'd be like, "Mason, well, tell me about it, man. What have you learned from her?" Dude, sin. So much, man. I mean, dude, she's a singer. Yeah, just so much. Okay, man. Well, you guys hang out? Not a ton. Taylor, we gotta, we're tight. We got a unique thing. She does her thing. She's a nice girlfriend. She lets me do my thing. That's kind of how it works. Oh, okay. Well, how often do you guys, talk? He goes, not a ton, really. It's the same thing. If she does her thing, I do my thing. Maybe once every so often, I'll hit her up if I need something, or just say what's up, but not very often. And as silly as that sounds, right? As silly as Mason sounds, that is oftentimes what a fan's faith will look like. They can talk, "Oh yeah, me and God, we're tight, we're good." Mason's out here, "Me and T Swift, we're tight, we're good." But a real relationship doesn't look like that, right? A real relationship, what's true of a real relationship, right? They communicate with each other, they spend time together, they learn about each other, and ultimately they're changed by the other person, right? And so a real relationship with God, all of those things are true. That's what it means to live that life, is that me and God on a relationship level, just like I would any other friends, that we spend time together, we communicate, we talk, and we hang out, and ultimately I'm changed by Jesus. I'm changed by my time with God. That's what it means to have a real relationship. Mason, thanks for being an example there. The next one and the last one is a fan's life looks like everyone else. A fan's life looks like everyone else. On the flip side, we see that a follower's life produces fruit. A follower's life produces fruit. My bad, hey, what does it mean to produce fruit? I'll get to that here in a second. But I want to just get a picture of a typical K-State fan. So I got this guy right here. This is what I would think by, this is your probably typical K-State fan. This is anyone's dad, I'm sorry. But if you were walking to Bill on Saturday, this is what you typically got the purple on, got the hat, got the glasses. To some extent, we all probably dress similar like this as a fan going to the K-State game. Who knows who this is right here? Daniel Green, yeah, absolutely. Daniel Green obviously looks a little bit different than your typical K-State fan. Just started the physique. I wish I could have found a picture with more of his biceps. But I mean, Daniel Green was bred to be a Division I linebacker, probably an NFL linebacker. I mean, he was born to just be violent and physical on a football field. Daniel Green is built different. He is built different. And some random fan can't just walk onto the field and play Division I linebacker, right? Daniel Green looks different than your random fan. And the crazy thing about being a follower of Christ is that you will look different. You will look different than a typical fan of faith. What do I mean by that? If we go to John 15:8, this is what Jesus is saying. So this is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Disciples is another word for followers. So how do you show yourself to be a follower? How do you know that you are following Christ? Well, the verse says that you bear fruit. Really, that your life looks different. That your life is producing fruit. And what does that mean? What is fruit? What does that look like? Well, the scriptures in the Bible talks about two different kinds of fruit. There's fruit on an inward level, and then there's fruit even on an outward level. And so on an inward level, this is just personal character. It says this is Galatians 5:22-23. It says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. This is the fruit of the Spirit. And if we're trying to assess, hey, where am I at when it comes to being a fan of Christ or a follower of Christ, we can look to these character qualities and say, wow, are these things on an inward level true of us? And not that they have to be perfect. They don't need to be perfect, but as you're growing in these things, is this true of me on an inward level? Man, do these qualities come out of me because of my relationship with God? And then on an outward level, we can see here, and basically outward level just means that you are impacting other people for Jesus. In Colossians 1:6, the way Paul writes here, says it's the same way the gospel is bearing fruit and growing throughout the whole world, just as it's been doing among you since the day you heard it and truly understood God's grace. Paul's saying, hey, since the day you became a follower of Christ, since the day you said, hey, I want to not just be a fan, but I want to commit to following Christ, the gospel has been flowing through you and has been impacting other people. And so we've got to ask ourselves, hey, on an inward level and on an outward level, are these things true of me? Is my life producing fruit? You see, a fan's life looks like everyone else, but a follower's life looks different, and it really is producing fruit. And so again, those are just a brief three points on the difference between a fan and a follower. For the rest of this series, we're going to talk about the differences between a fan and a follower. We want to help you guys really grow to become followers of Christ. If you are a follower of Christ, I help you guys to continue to deepen your faith as well. And so if you look at the next few weeks, Blake next week is going to talk about the idea of this commitment and what it means to be a committed follower of Christ. The week after that, Jordan Edwards is going to come up and talk. He's my expert man. Love Jordan. He's the man. But he's going to talk about the idea of being Jesus being your one and only. And there's a lot of things that can compete for the throne of our life. How can we have Jesus be the one and only? And then Caleb, another expert man, love him to death. He's going to be talking about just the misconception of following Christ and following Jesus. Oftentimes, there's misconception that it's just following the rules. This is what faith is, following rules. He's going to break down the idea of what it means to just follow Jesus and how the misconception of the rules. So next week after that, I'm going to come back, talk about how faith really is for everyone, and being a follower of Christ, not just a fan, is for everyone. Then Dee Reese is going to come all the way up from Texas to come and give us a talk on what it's like to give all of your life. I'm talking about the beginning, not just part of your life, but all of your life to Christ. And then after that, Blake is going to close us down with saying yes to Jesus wherever, whenever, and whatever is on the table for him. And so I'm excited for this series. We hope it really does help you guys take next steps in your faith and grow. I'm excited for all these talks that are going to be really fun to dive into. And so, like I mentioned, I'm going to go back to our main question as we close tonight. This question of what are we? What are we? You may have thoughts as we walk through just a few of those differences. And you might be like, actually, I feel like I'm on this fan side, or I'm on this follower side. I'm being pretty convinced. So I want to help us even understand that a little bit more. I want to take us to the happiest place on earth. Not Disney World, but Bill Snyder Family Stadium right here. It is a happy place. We're winning games. It is a happy place. But if you might think about it, just like the MCs mentioned, there's a lot of different types of fans when it comes to a K-State game, right? You have people that are like, man, the game's just not worth it, right? And so they're not even in the stadium. They might be watching it on TV. They might not even be doing that. They're like, man, K-State, don't care too much about it. We're not really worth it, right? There might be fans that are up there in the nosebleeds, where to a certain extent they're a fan, right? They're there, but they don't sacrifice the time. They're like, hey, we'll buy nosebleed seats. We'll go enjoy the game. But then you've got such a committed, faithful front row people, right? I saw some folks in the front row because they're faithful, right? And they'll sacrifice. They'll take 3 or 4 hours to go to the game early, sit there, get their spots. They're front row fans. And then also in this picture, you've got players. You've got people that are actually on the field, and players sacrifice their entire life for the game of football. And they're there, they practice daily, their entire schedule is centered around football, their time, what they eat. All the things they do is centered around the game of football. I look at this picture, and I'm like, wow, man, there's some different spots that something can fall as far as it comes to being a fan of K-State. But even if we use this idea, this picture, it's almost a metric for us when it comes to following Christ, being a real follower of Christ. You might be at a spot where you're completely out of the stadium. And you're like, man, faith, just not necessarily for me. I'm just barely even beginning to think about faith. And I'm probably not even in the stadium. You might be in the nosebleeds, where you're just coming to your toes in faith and learn more about it. You sacrifice a little bit of time, travel in the nosebleeds. You're not like a dedicated diehard fan. And you might be in the front row, where faith has been important to you. You've been growing in the faith. You've been maybe growing up more in the church. Maybe you have been just really eager and excited to grow in college. But you have on a personal level said, God, I want to go all in with you and really become an official follower of the faith. And then a lot of us, maybe some of us might be players, where our entire life is dedicated and our entire life revolves around faith and following Jesus. And wherever you're at, you're thinking, hey, where do I fall on this stadium picture? And it's really cool, wherever you're at, again, just like Keith mentioned, our heart is that you would take the next step to become a committed follower of Christ. You think about it, this verse, Romans 3:20, it's a cool picture of what Jesus is offering. He's saying this, here I am, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person, and they with me. Jesus saying, hey, wherever you're at, but if you're out of the stadium, if you're somewhere in the stands, I'm knocking. And I want you to come and be in a relationship with me and be a committed follower of me. And one of the coolest parts, what I think about God and just who God is that He's near to us. You can see even in Acts 17:27, where He's talking about the gospel. He was saying God did this so that men would seek Him and perhaps reach out for Him and find Him, though He is not far from each one of us. And that's the coolest promise, I think, in the world, is that wherever we're at, even if we're out of the stadium running the opposite way, is that God is not far from us. God is actually near to us. But I actually want to even have someone come up that has a story where she came into college not even in the stadium. And the coolest part about it is that her story really shows how we can go from not even in the stadium to a real follower of Christ. So I'm going to give it up for Avery. She comes up.
Okay, so if you would have asked me coming into college, like Sim said, if I would have any interest in God whatsoever, I would have laughed at you and said no. 4 years ago, God was not even a thought in my mind. I actually didn't even believe in God at that point. So again, going back to the stadium, I wouldn't have been in the stadium, wouldn't have even known there was a game going on. I remember one time, freshman year, I walk into the Derg and I sit down with a bunch of girls in my sorority, and we're just eating, chilling, talking, it's great. And then I realized that they're all there to set up a big discussion or Bible study for the school year. And I was like, oh no. So they get around me and they're like, okay, what days and times work best for you? And I was like, yeah, I'm not really into all that. I just really needed someone to sit with. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down, I definitely wasn't a player and I wasn't even a fan. But fast forward to sophomore year, I moved into my sorority And my roommate had a relationship with God and like actually lived it out. So as roommates, we spent a lot of time together, did a lot of stuff together. So I got to see what it looked like to actually really have a relationship with God. And some things that I remember her doing that still stand out to me to this day. She was nice to everyone, no matter how they treated her. She was genuinely happy and enjoyed her life. She put others before herself. She read her Bible all the time, and she just like couldn't help but talk about God. And I personally have never met someone like this, so this is really new to me. But I would say at this point, I was in the nosebleeds. So I was like watching her be a player, and I kind of, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, wanted what she had, but I was still low-key scared of the whole God thing. So I was like, okay, that's cool for you, but still not for me. But as time went on, me and her got closer, and I started to trust her, and we started talking about God more. And I remember one time she asked me where I was at with God and what was holding me back from like wanting to learn more about Him and have a relationship with Him. And I remember it being really helpful for me to recognize where I was at and why. And for the first time pretty much ever, I actually really did want to learn more about God. So I started reading books like More Than a Carpenter and Case for Christ, which basically talk about the validity of the Bible and the resurrection. And I also just asked my roommate a ton of questions. And then after thinking through things for a few months, I really did trust the Bible and trust that I could build my life off of it. And I really did believe in God. So things started getting exciting at this point, okay? I was a big fan. I was front row, student section, face painted purple, glittery signs, screaming, yelling, okay? But I still wasn't a player yet. I wasn't actually on the field in the game playing. But I put two and two together, and I started reading my Bible to learn more about God and who He is and His character and how He views me. And then once I understood that He sent Jesus to die on the cross for our sins so that we could have a personal relationship with Him, I was like, okay, there's a decision to be made on my part. I can either keep being a fan or I can give God control and be an actual player. So I decided to go all in. And since then, I've continued to grow in my relationship with God and to see why being an actual player makes life so much better. And like, don't get me wrong, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like for example, at the game this weekend, when it started raining and it was cold and it was storming, all the fans could call and get a ride, go home, change, get warm, get some food. But the players had to like actually stay out in the cold and fight through the weather and continue to play. But like the wins mean so much more to the actual players and are so much more rewarding to the actual players than the fans. And as a player or someone following Christ, sometimes I have to make sacrifices and I have to be disciplined. And it's not always comfortable or easy, but it's totally worth it. It's like actually way more than worth it. My life actually has purpose and direction, and the life I get to live following Christ is the most fulfilling and rewarding thing I could live for.
That's awesome. Avery, thanks so much for sharing the story. I just love the picture of even when Avery came into college, like out of the stadium, God was still here to her and was pursuing her. And I think it's really cool that in order for us to realize and answer that question, what are we? You know, Jesus is looking you right in the eye to answer that. It takes some honesty, right? It takes some transparency with myself. I've really got to look at my life and say, man, me and Jesus, really, what are we? Where are we? So I want you to even take a few moments as we wrap up tonight. Just talk about this with somebody next to you. And the first question up here is, where would you say you're at when it comes to the stadium? And so feel free to be honest as you talk to somebody next to you. Maybe if you're a fan, answer this next question. What would be a good next step of growth for you? And then maybe you're like, oh, I am a follower. And I would say answer that second question as well. Because just like Avery mentioned, the players always strive to get better, always strive to grow and get stronger. So go ahead and discuss these next couple of questions, and then we'll have an MC comes and wraps it after that. Sound good?